MacVoices is supported by Raycon, the makers of quality earbuds. Get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices Live. I'm Chuck Joyner, and this is the talk of the Apple community. The Mac community used to be the Mac community, now it's the Apple community. I'm going back in time. Folks, every summer we try to do a wrap-up show on Macstock before it gets too far out of mind, and so that's what this is. And that means I get to welcome our featured guest, Mr. Mike Potter. Mike, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for sharing the topic with me once I joined on the live stream.
Well, I thought it went without saying, that we should talk about this. And also
Happy
joining
to.
us, Mr. David Ginsburg is here as well. David, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Glad to be here.
Yeah. And folks, you can join us as well. If you are on Facebook, you can get the Zoom information in the chat. I'll be posting it in there momentarily, and you can also get it in a post on the Facebook page, MacVoices Facebook page, and in the MacVoices group. All you have to do is click that link, and you can join David and Mike and me here to talk about whatever it is we're going to be talking about. And at least we're going to start out with Macstock. So, Mike, congratulations. You pulled off arguably the best virtual conference I've been to this summer. No kidding.
Well, it worked. I said that to a couple folks. It worked. I couldn't be more happy with the results. I've actually spent the last couple days compiling the individual talks to put on the digital pass for the Macstock 2021 pass holders. Those were actually uploaded today. And I went through and I enhanced all the audio from the live stream. So all 5 hours and 45 minutes of it, I went through and enhanced all the audio because we had some audio issues from the studio. The actual talks themselves were fine, but kind of leveled everything out. So it sounds a lot better, and I'm in the process of getting that uploaded too. So we're going to have what do they call it in the music industry when they redo an album?
Remaster?
The remastered version of Virtual Macstock 2020 is headed everyone's way soon.
So let's hit that real quick. So if you missed Macstock, all right, what is the procedure for being able to see the Macstock talks at this point?
Well, as of right now, they're still on the site for anyone who signed up, got a free Virtual Macstock ticket, or signed up for the in-person Macstock this year. The live stream is still there. I haven't taken it down yet. And then I'm in the process, as I just said a moment ago. I'll use the term again since it finally flitted into my head. Remastering the Virtual Macstock, fixing the audio issues that we had, and getting that uploaded for the digital pass holders. So for right now, and probably for the next couple days, if you signed up for Virtual Macstock or if you purchased a ticket to Macstock 2020, which has been rolled over to 2021, then you can go to the Virtual Macstock page, sign in, and watch the live stream again. Now, once that comes down, which is going to happen in the next couple days, then it's going to be the folks who purchased a ticket to Macstock 2020 who would have that digital pass. They're going to be able to go in and watch it anytime from now, forever, or as forever as Macstock can be. It's going to be on their digital pass, and they'll get not only that, but then all the talks from Macstock 2021 when those come out next year.
Okay, just want to make sure we get that out of the way right up front. That you can still watch it now. You can watch it, as Mike said, forever later, or just plan to come Macstock next year. The real Macstock, the live and in-person Macstock.
Live and in-person, yes.
Okay, so I really mean it. I've been to multiple virtual conferences, both technology and for business, and there was only one that came even close to what you pulled off, And what was interesting about it is that that one was put on by a major news organization, and I can only imagine how much money they spent doing it. And you're just one guy sitting there in front of a table of gear, switching things back and forth and streaming it out, and it absolutely all worked.
Okay, well, first, two things. I'm going to start with the most important, and that's this other gentleman sitting in the live stream right now, Dave Ginsburg. Quite honestly, without Dave volunteering to help out as my co-host for the day, it would have been darn near impossible to pull off. Dave fulfilled the very, very important job of not only kind of monitoring everything and making sure it was going out the way that we hoped it was going to go out, but also he was monitoring the chat room. And if, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, you were also keeping an eye on the virtual lounge as well and seeing what was going on in there too. So kudos to Dave, who really stepped up big. And anytime I saw something in the chat room and I said, "Oh, did you get? Yep, I got it. Did you get? Yep, I got it." He was on everything. And I was just thinking that if we do this again, he has to be there, because if he's not there, I'm not sure we could pull it off quite as successfully. So that's the first thing I wanted to get out of the way.
No, I appreciate that. It was a pleasure to do it. So
yeah, and I agree with you. And I guess to clarify, because I wanted to absolutely recognize Dave as doing an amazing job of kind of being the behind the curtains guy as far as the interactions with the people. But I honestly, Mike, was talking about more the technical parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
That the system you cobbled together worked so much better than. Frankly, I just attended a virtual event last week, and it was put on by a company that does virtual events, and it was okay, nothing wrong with it, but it didn't hold a candle to Macstock.
Well, so part two of my answer is, and I think I said this somewhere before, but I have to come clean. I've attended a number of virtual conferences also. Most of the virtual conferences I've attended were WordPress-based type things. There are some other conferences I attended, but most of them were WordPress-based, so technical type conferences. And I spent a lot of the time that I was attending their conference actually digging into the code behind the pages to see what technology they were using for their virtual conference. Because if it's something that I liked, if it's something I thought was cool, I said, I got to figure out how they're doing this. And in one particular case, no names, but in one particular case, I knew one of the presenters, and I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, how were they doing this the way I thought they were doing it? Were they doing this and this and this?" And he said, "Yeah, that's exactly what we did." And I said, perfect. That's what I need to do then too. So yes, a lot of it was cobbled together, and that's probably the generous way of putting it. But the truth is, I borrowed a lot from other conferences that I felt were successful, and it wasn't any big or expensive technology. It wasn't anything dedicated to conferences or dedicated to events. There's plenty of that out there, and there's a lot of really good stuff out there that's dedicated to it. It was just really cool technology that helped make the day feel like Macstock.
And I admit that when you told me pre-event some of the things you were planning to try or to do, I confess to being just a little bit skeptical. It's like, okay, why don't you just, why don't you just do a stream out to YouTube and call it a day, and of course, I mean, that means connecting people via Zoom or whatever to send it there. But at the end of the day, do that. But you really got ambitious and added other things, much like an in-person Macstock.
Yeah. Well, it kind of came down to three key things. Streaming to YouTube was really without question. That's where I was going to stream it to. YouTube is great with the chat off to the side. There's no requirement to have an account to view the live stream. If you want to chat, you need to have an account, but otherwise there's, you can just watch it. So as long as you have the link to watch it, you can watch it. And that's one thing I really wanted. I didn't want there to be another barrier to folks being able to watch it. So that was that. So going out to YouTube was one thing. And then the chat, even though it is somewhat flat, as I heard people refer to it, there's not a lot of dimension to the chat room in YouTube, but that's okay. It's supposed to be in the moment type stuff. That worked perfect for that. Now, as far as getting the presentations done, that's one thing I borrowed from another conference, in that they pre-recorded all the talks. They didn't try to bring anybody in live. There's too much room for error with that. So the 2 weeks leading up to Macstock, even though there were errors, we corrected them by re-recording or doing whatever. But we pre-recorded all the talks, and that gave me the opportunity to edit them down. But in the end, for anyone who attended, they know this, I didn't really edit them down all that much. Mostly I took out extra long pauses or things like that. I didn't really cut down too much, because I just felt the conversation was worth keeping, in its entirety. So while I told folks they had 20 minutes, in many cases they had 20, 25, 37, I just kind of let it go. I let it be Macstock, which is what Macstock is. People have a time limit. They have the time limit on their deeper dive, but we always run long or we run short. But, in the end, everyone has a good time. And that was really what my end goal was for that.
Well, not much question you accomplished that. We're going to try to let Frank in from the chat room.
Oh, great.
See if he's able to get in there.
Oh, Frank.
Frank got his camera working. All right, Frank. Now his mic is not working.
I like the green screen there. That's cool.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, if you will, about the lounge area, because that was something that sort of came out of left field.
It did.
I don't think any of us had, outside of you, had any experience with that. And I found it very interesting. It was, I spent a little bit of time in there. I should have spent more, honestly, but there were other places I wanted to be. But again, it felt like Macstock. It's like, okay, I could be here watching the presentation, or I could be over here hanging out, talking to people, just like we call it the hallway track at Macstock.
Mm-hmm. Right. That was interesting, because up until 2 weeks prior to Virtual Macstock, you can ask Dave, because I went back and forth with him several times. I had no freaking clue how I was going to allow people to kind of take part in that. Like you said, the hallway track. It's nice to have the chat room and YouTube, but people need to have those side conversations too. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. And very, very luckily, very fortuitously, it was 2 weeks prior, Marina Eppelman, one of Macstock attendee, has come almost every year, not every year, but she's been almost every year, because she sent me a photo of all of her Macstock lanyards hanging up on the wall. She said, hey, at AltConf, we participated in this really cool thing, and I want you to look at it, because I think this would be perfect for Macstock. And I will admit, initially, when I hear that kind of thing, and I know you sent me stuff too, Chuck, and Dave has sent me stuff, and I'm like, oh gosh, what kind of complication is going to come out of this? What, how is this going to make my life incredibly difficult when I look at this thing? And it really wasn't. It was this super cool technology that is all audio based. You go into the room and you end up with a little avatar. You can put your picture on it. Like I could put my little badger on it if I wanted to, that you're seeing right now. But you could put put a little picture on your avatar, put your name on it, and you wander around this map. And as you wander around the map, you can wander up to people and you can talk to them and they can hear you. And then as you wander away, they start to get quieter. And so what it does is this kind of 3D spatial audio that they feature allows you to form groups, just like you can at Macstock. You can have, at Macstock, if anyone's been there, we literally have a hallway track. There's a hallway just outside the conference room where people often congregate. And then we have a little sitting area, and we have the lunchroom area, and there's all kinds of hallways because it takes place at a community college. So people can go off and they can form these conversations all throughout. And you might be able to hear just a little bit of that conversation if you're, what's going on over there? And that's kind of how this works too, is as these conversations are taking place, you can hear just a little bit of it over there, but it's more of a murmur. It takes on that aura of being in a hall, being in a party, and just kind of knowing that there's other people around, but they're not in your immediate conversation. So if you want to go take part in that conversation, you move your little avatar over there and you're in that conversation. It's super cool. And we played around with it. Actually, Marina and I played around with it for just like 15, 20 minutes. It was a real short session, and said, well, let's do a full demo of this. And at that point, she was so enthusiastic about it. I said, and by the way, Marina, since you introduced this to me, you are now the guru of this. This is your baby. You've become an official Macstock volunteer. This is now your thing to do. So the weekend before, when we were doing some audio tests and things like that, Marina reached out to a whole bunch of people, about 20 plus people. I think Frank was one.
Yeah.
I don't remember if you were there, Chuck. Dave was in there. And we just gave it a run through, and checked to see how well it worked and is it going to work with a larger crowd. And then that test worked, and so we moved on to Macstock and said, well, let's just see what happens.
It was fabulous. I mean, you really pulled it off with that. And again, I want to thank you for your kind words. That was very nice, and I was really happy to be able to be part of it. But with the whole chat part of it, it was challenging because you're right. YouTube does not have a very good chat mechanism at all. It's hard to see things. We were telling people to put in @Q or question but I was still spending a lot of time scanning through it. And as you saw, as I was able to handle it, to get through a lot of those questions and get those so we can make sure we get those questions answered when we were in that time. But yeah, the high fidelity thing was very, very interesting. I want to actually play with it a little more because it's just kind of strange that you're just moving your avatar around. If you're not in an exact spot, you're kind of hearing them. It's like, if I'm moving away from the mic like I am now, it's the same thing. You don't
That's
hear.
exactly right.
You don't hear that person talking very clearly, and it is even freakier when you're on the other side of the room or on the other side of the map, and you can kind of hear the conversations in the distance, but you can't make it out. You can kind of tell who it is, but you just can't hear it. Very, very unique platform. I think it's going to be something that it's going to really be for the future.
I think so, and I'm glad you mentioned the name because I just realized I completely neglected to mention the name. High Fidelity, highfidelity.com. It's a beta service right now, and what's really cool about that, and I have to give them lots of kudos here, is that they are super eager for feedback. So even if you go in and you sign up and you create a room on your own and you have a small virtual party with your friends or what have you, or your podcast or whatever, they want to get that feedback. And we had some really cool feedback from folks who were in the high fidelity room during Macstock. Things like, hey, it would be great if we could do little textual chats, because what if, for example, Frank's microphone or headphones aren't working and we want to give him some tips and say, hey, try this or try this. If you could send with your friends or what have you, or your podcast, if you could send a quick little text message over to them and say, hey, are you in Firefox? Maybe don't use Firefox, give Chrome a try, that kind of thing. And they listen to those ideas. And I think that's really, really cool and really valuable. If you're building out a new service and you want to make sure it's useful to everybody and you want to make sure it grows, you got to listen to the users, and they definitely are. And it turns out They're in Wisconsin. I didn't know that. They're up in Madison, Wisconsin area, so that's really cool too. I'm hoping maybe I kind of briefly broached the topic with them, but I'm hoping maybe next time we have a in-person Macstock, they might want to come down and check it out.
Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Raycon, the makers of true wireless earbuds. What earbuds are you using right now? And please don't tell me you're still wired to your device. That's so last decade. Wireless earbuds can connect to your iPhone, your iPad, even your Mac. That makes them good for both audio and video entertainment, as well as business. Business, I hear you say? Yes, business. I'm betting you are working during lockdown, and that means both phone calls and video conference calls. Sometimes hours of both. To free up your hands for notes and computer use, wireless earbuds are the way to go. Raycon solves the problem with options that start at about half of other top brands, and they sound amazing. And yes, of course there's a mic so that you can talk and not just listen. With 6 hours of battery life, and even more when you drop them in the charging case, they will quickly become an essential productivity tool. But what about after work? You want to escape. Raycons give you that great fit and seal so that you can block out the rest of the world and enjoy your favorite music or videos. And a great lower end so that you can almost feel those cars blowing up in your favorite action movie. I'm using the newest model, the Everyday E35 earbuds. They pair seamlessly and have all those other benefits to boot. Raycon was founded by Ray J, and celebrities like Melissa Etheridge, Brandy, and Mike Tyson love their earbuds. You will too. So what are you waiting for? Get the latest and greatest from Raycon. Get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/MacVoices. That's buyraycon.com/MacVoices for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. Buyraycon.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Raycon for their support of MacVoices. Mike in the chat room said Second Life, and I had that much experience with Second Life, but there's a Second Life vibe to it, but it's different. I mean, I have to admit, because I was not able to get into the test time, I had a schedule conflict of some kind. So my first taste of high fidelity was that morning logging in. And it was just a little disconcerting at first to hear that murmur in the background and think, oh, am I intruding on somebody's conversation? Or, and then once you you zoom out a little bit and you realize, okay, I'm just hearing the conversation from way over in that room over there, but there's one over here. And, you like you say, you move your avatar around and you quickly pick up the metaphor. And it works. And especially if you were able to add your photo to the avatar, that let other people know who was sneaking up on them and comment. And so it was just interesting.
Well, it's interesting that Mike brought up Mike, right? You said
Mike LaPlante.
Yeah.
Mike LaPlante.
Interesting you brought up Second Life, because that was one of the suggestions I came across, is use Second Life for these kind of things. And it is different from Second Life in that you really are nothing more than a little circular avatar, and it is purely audio, other than the fact that your little round avatar is moving around on a map. But Second Life does ask more of the user than High Fidelity does. High Fidelity asks the user to have a browser and a headset. That's it. So there really aren't a lot of heady requirements to it, and it's very natural, very, very natural. Second Life is cool. I mean, it is super cool, but I thought it was a little too much for what we needed and what we wanted to do.
Yeah, I've played a little bit with Sansar, the platform that Roddenberry uses for some of the Star Trek events, and you have an avatar, and you're looking potentially through either you can shift your views through the eyes of the avatar or a third-party view, and it's surprisingly effective even without the goggles and all the virtual reality gear. It changes it changes from just a chat, and it would change this a little bit too, but it also introduces, like you said, that complexity that you're trying to figure out, which conversation you're in, how to move from, the conversation that's happening here versus the one that's happening over there. Yeah, it's and taking nothing away from Sansar. it's very cool. It just has a little bit more of a learning curve than High Fidelity did.
Yeah, I was with you, Chuck, when you tried Stanzar. If you remember, we were both in the same room, and it was very challenging. I think that system probably has quite a bit more of a learning curve than the High Fidelity system is, because I just jumped right into High Fidelity. And once you got used to it, and you move this way, and this is how you go. I think that you learned it pretty quickly, and just getting used to it. So, but yeah, that was a good comparison.
But and David, the other thing too, I must say that Sansar is built for VR headsets and that kind of thing, because I've used it with a VR headset, and yeah, it becomes a whole lot more intuitive, there, as opposed to using keyboard and mice or mouse or trackpad or whatever. So you have to have the gear to make it work. But Mike, you're right. This was simple, and the learning curve was about a minute and a half, if that, and then all of a sudden you can interact with whoever you want.
And I should clarify, when I mentioned 3D earlier, the word 3D came out of my mouth, and what I want to clarify is it's 3D spatial audio,
right?
Not video. It's not 3D video. There's no VR involved in this at all. It's literally a 2D flat bitmap map. It's a bitmap map. Yeah. That you wander around on, and they're flat 2D avatars that you have, and the only 3D aspect of it is actually really cool when you play with it. But if you happen to come up to someone who you're having a conversation with, as I did in our demo with Allison, you'll like this, Chuck. While we were chatting, I literally was running my avatar around her as we were talking. And as I was doing that, her voice was switching from right ear to center to left ear. It was like I was literally wandering around her. It was so cool. Yeah. And it's just audio. And then the map that we wander on, there's so many things you can do with it. You can embed hyperlinks in it. You can embed links out to other sites. You can build multiple rooms and link the rooms together. There's all this cool stuff that I was reading, and they have lots and lots of tech articles on their site. And I was reading all this. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And next time I'm doing that. But the one thing I did do is you can create your own map. So there are some requirements to that. It has to be a certain size, and you got to make sure the scale is right and all that. So what I did is I downloaded one of the maps that they make available and popped it into Affinity Photo and just kind of played with it and added the Macstock logo to the lawn. It looks like it's cut into the lawn, and I added the dog cow to it, and I added the trash can in one of the rooms. And one thing I did on purpose for two Macstock attendees, a husband and wife, Bobby and Andy, who come every year to Macstock, and every year they pose by the same banner at Macstock. I can never get rid of this banner, because every year they pose by this banner, and they take a picture and they send it to me, and they remind me that they pose by this banner every year. And so I made a digital version of that banner and put it on the map so that they could pose by it with their avatar and take a screenshot. So it's fun when you do that. And if I really wanted to exercise my creative chops, I could create a wholly custom map. The key is just making sure it's scaled correctly for the environment. It can't just be 4,000 by 4,000 pixels. It needs to be scaled properly when you have chairs and rooms on it and things like that. Those need to be all scaled correctly to the environment. But other than that, there's so much creativity to it. I really hope this service takes off, because I for one plan on using it again.
There are a couple ways I want to take this conversation, but I do want to comment on the ability to walk around someone and have the audio. If I had been there testing it with Allison, I would have walked away, and it would have been wonderful to just hear it, go down. Hi, Allison. No, Mike, I think I know that in Second Life, For a while, it was one of the hot things that, businesses and companies were in there trying to, erect pavilions and
Yeah,
do
yeah,
different things.
yeah.
I think it maybe was a little ahead of its time. Maybe we'll get there. But this gives me a certain amount, not hope maybe, but makes me much more optimistic about conducting business in a kind of virtual reality setting. Not as sophisticated as Second Life or Sansar, but definitely, for the, and I say that because those are great things if you have the people with the gear. Here, anybody that has a laptop or iMac or whatever, and the gear that comes with it can participate. And so I felt like I learned something there way beyond Macstock, that I may have seen another part of a digital future, and especially a COVID-19 digital future.
Yeah. The very first time I played with VR was in the 1980s, and it was at the University of Illinois in Chicago. My dad worked there, and he invited a friend of mine and I out. We both took the day off we were in college at the time, and we both took the day off and went out there, and they showed off their VR system. It was incredibly cool for the 1980s. I mean, it was super immersive. If you can imagine what the graphics looked like in the 1980s, Money for Nothing. Think of Money for Nothing, the music video, and that's kind of what it looked like, right? But it was super, super cool. And I think sometimes technology can get in the way of productivity. And I guess this would be a good offshoot from Joe Bulig's talk on pens and manual note taking and all that kind of stuff. But I think sometimes technology can get in the way, and I think I feel, I shouldn't say I think, that's the wrong implication. I feel as if if we went with Second Life, or we went with one of those other technologies, and we went with VR and we went all that kind of stuff, it can start to get to be too distracting, and you lose some of that intimacy that you can have by just holding a conversation with someone. We all know that you can have a very immersive, thought-provoking conversation over the phone. Yes, I'm 53. I still use the phone sometimes. I'm sorry, but it's you can have fantastic conversations over the phone. That's 2D audio. There's nothing fancy about it, but it sometimes you allow your mind to kind of relax, and you can focus on the words that are coming out of the other person's, the other end of the phone, and that allows those thoughts to form in your own head to craft an appropriate reply to that person. And I feel as if you're in a virtual environment, you've got VR on, and there's all these distractions, that maybe you lose some of that. You lose some of that intimacy. As cool as it is, I'm not sure it's necessarily appropriate for what we were trying to accomplish. It's definitely appropriate for other situations. I'm not sure it's appropriate for that kind of hallway track lounge kind of relaxing atmosphere that we were looking to have.
And folks, if we're harping on this too much, I'm sorry, but it really left an impression on me, multiple impressions. Mike, you're absolutely right, and it fit with Macstock so well because it was techie enough for us to enjoy it and be something new, but it wasn't so techie that, oh my God, I'm never going to figure this out, so I'm just going and having a lemonade somewhere, and that's so much like Macstock. If you want to dive deep into the tech stuff, there are plenty of people there to talk, really deep tech with, but you make it approachable for everyone so that everyone can, participate if they choose and make just the barest of effort. And so it was a perfect thing to slot into the Macstock experience.
Well, I knew it was working when I heard that Guy and Gaz were recording a podcast in there. That's when I knew it was working, quite honestly. When I was working on the map, I created a stage area, and I thought, well, okay, the stage area could be where speakers congregate and people can go up and talk to them a little bit further about the presentation they gave. Just a kind of a rough thought that flitted into my head. Okay, then we have this kind of congregation area by the pool, and I had OWC's logo embedded in the bottom of the pool, and I thought, well, if I can get OWC to come out, they can kind of hang out in that area like we had them at Macstock, and they can kind of, entertain people who had questions about their products and stuff like that. And so I had these ideas, but what happened was a very organic thing, just like Macstock. This very organic thing happened where folks just kind of congregated where they wanted to congregate, and they started recording podcasts. And I would hear people talking about, oh, I'm sitting on the couch. How come you're not sitting on the couch? Well, it's just an avatar sitting on top of a 2D bitmap of a couch, but they're sitting on a couch. They're envisioning this, and they're allowing their imagination to roam wild. And that's when I thought, yeah, this is working. It's kind of cool.
We'll be back next time on MacVoices to wrap up the discussion with Mike Potter about Virtual Macstock 2020. There's still a lot to talk about with the tools that Mike used, why he decided to use them, how they were used, and why the event was such a great success. So please come back and watch the next section of this interview with Mike Potter on MacVoices Live. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.